بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين جل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف اللهم أخرجني من ظلمات الوهم وأكرمني بنور الفهم اللهم افتح علينا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا خزائن علمك برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. We continue our study of Introduction to Kalam by Ayatollah Mutahhari. We already talked about the way the Mu'tazilites were formed. And we said for them, in order to distinguish themselves from other schools of theology, they highlighted 5 principles. As we have also 5 principles, they have their own 5 principles. The first is Tawhid, and we explained. Of course, all Muslims believe in Tawhid, but they mention Tawhid because they have a different way of understanding Tawhid compared to others, especially compared to Ash'arites. As you remember, when it comes to Tawhid al-Sifati, Tawhid with respect to divine attributes, Ash'arites had a kind of idea that was not acceptable to Mu'tazila, it's not also acceptable to us. They had the idea that Allah's attributes are separate from His essence. So we have divine essence, but we have also knowledge of God separate. We have power of God separate, will of God separate. This is not acceptable to the Mu'tazila, it's not acceptable also to us. But on the other hand, Mu'tazilites had an idea that we don't like. And that is, they deny Tawhid Af'ali. They deny unity of God with respect to actions. We believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who does everything. Everything in creation, directly or indirectly, is done by God. Even our voluntary actions. But there is a hierarchy. You are responsible for your action. But it doesn't mean that you have gone out of Allah's control. Mu'tazilites have the idea of tafweed. It means Allah has delegated all the power and authority, everything to human beings in their voluntary actions. So here, Mu'tazilites were wrong. Ash'arites were good in confirming that everything is an act of God. But Ash'arites have another problem, which now we discuss when we go to the second principle. So, the first principle of Mu'tazilites is Tawheed, and the reason they highlighted Tawheed, as I said, was because of some controversies about Tawheed, especially when it comes to Tawhid al-Sifati and Tawhid Af'ali. The second principle. We are not just mentioning these things to understand the Mu'tazilites. We want to understand the history of Kalam so that we can better understand the Shia stance. Because you cannot understand it in vacuum. You have to know what were the issues and controversies at that time. Their second principle is adl. Again, like us, but with some differences. No Muslim denies divine justice, like Tawheed. But there were different interpretations of divine justice. different views about how to explain divine justice. To the extent that some of them actually means justice is nothing. According to the Ash'arites, God is just, is adil, by definition. Like, for example, if I call a person, okay, for example, Ayatollah. We put his name, Ayatollah. Okay, this person is Ayatollah. And no one can deny he's Ayatollah. But this is by definition. It means that it doesn't show anything. You have just put the name. They say God is Adil. But we say, what does it mean? What does it require? What does it imply? Nothing. Whatever he does is justice. He can do anything. Yes, he has told us, I do these things, I don't do those things, but he could have decided another way. He said, I don't send good people to hell. But he could say, I send them to hell. It's up to him. This is the way Ash'arites understood the issue of divine justice. So God does just things because justice is what he does. Justice is what he commands. Mu'tazilites say no. And here they are close to us. And this is why Shia and Mu'tazilites are also called together Adliya. Adliya means people of justice. Why? Because they, like us, believe that justice is an objective matter. Even if you have no faith, you are not Muslims, you are not Christian, you are not believer in God, you don't believe in any scripture. Still, as a human being, you can understand that certain things are just, certain things are unjust. There is, for example, a child has a toy, playing with his or her toy. I can take his or her toy. You don't need to be a Muslim to understand this. You don't need to be a believer to understand this. If you have reason, you understand this. So they say to punish the good people or to reward criminals is not justice. Or for Allah to create in us actions and then punish us for that. Because according to Ash'arites, you don't have freedom act. Your actions are created by God in you, and you are just a place. You are just mawdu. You are just a subject. You don't have any free will, actually. So, Mu'tazila say this is not right. This is not justice that Allah makes a sin in me and then punishes me for that. We also have the same idea. So, the reason for highlighting divine justice was because according to some interpretation of justice, justice becomes absurd. Justice becomes meaningless. They, like us, believe that justice is objective. Certain things in themselves are just, certain things in themselves are unjust. Then this led to another discussion. This is the discussion that any person who studies Kalam knows about al-husn wal-qubh al-dhatiyan aw aradiyan. Are goodness and badness intrinsic or not. Means, are there moral values in the actions by themselves, or we pump it from outside? According to to Ash'arites, there is no intrinsic value. Doing zulm or adl, doing good to people or not, keeping your promise or not, they are all in themselves the same. So the issue of justice and injustice led to an expanded discussion about any moral value. They don't believe in. But this is something that you find it very common also among some non-Muslims, among some Christians, some Jews. In the Western philosophy, you find this is called divine command theory. They say whatever God commands is good. We also say whatever God commands is good, but we say it in a different way. We say God commands good things. Yeah, not that arbitrarily when He commands they become good. It's like what? There was a person that was always able to hit the target, like shooting the arrow, always hitting the target. The only thing was that after he hits, he identifies the target. So wherever the arrow hits, he puts a mark, said this was the target. Okay, this person is 100% successful. But this doesn't show any capability. Yes? So, if na'udhu billah, we say whatever God does is good, but what is good? Whatever He says. Every tyrant also can be good in this sense. You know, in some countries, for example, those who have power, they don't observe law. But in some countries, tyrants observe law. Why? Because law is what they do. They never do anything against the law because they are making the law. Very simple. Everything is legal because they make the law as they wish. So, na'udhu billah, we don't have this understanding of Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is someone who does things in vain, in arbitrary way, and we just have to accept. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always observing objective values. Some people have difficulty with this. You find this among Muslims, Christians, There are people who say, this means you are making God subordinate. This means that God has to observe certain values. But the answer is, no, we are not making God subordinate. Actually, it is God that has made these laws, but not by arbitration, by making these part of the system of the relations between notions, between concepts, between realities. For example, why 2 plus 2 is 4? Why it's not 5? Because it is a reality. It is part of the law of the creation. Whether we human beings exist or don't exist, this is the law. And Allah, by observing this, He is not obeying something outside Himself. He is the absolute truth. And any truth goes back to Him. So, He is essentially observing the values. This is not a matter of being forced. The meaning of this ayah, لا يسأل عما يفعل وهم يسألون. Some people have not understood this ayah properly. Allah is never asked, never questioned about what He does, but others are questioned. Some people have not understood. They thought, because we don't have any right to ask Him. But no, this is not the meaning. لا يسأل عما يفعل, because He never does anything wrong. In the same way, angels are also not questioned, because they never do anything wrong. If someone, you are sure that he does everything according to the values and principles, you never ask him. This is different from someone who is tyrant and says, I don't want to answer any question. No, this is different. So, there was a big question about al-husnu wal-qubh. Are these intrinsic, essential, or these are accidental, these are pumped from outside? Mu'tazilites had the idea that these are intrinsic, these are essential, these are objective, these are independent. And then it led to another question. Now that they are objective, they can be understood by aql. So they are also aqliyan. Al-husn wal-qubh dhatiyan and aqliyan. But according to the Ash'arites, they are aradi, means they are accidental, and they are shar'i, means that you cannot understand by aql. We say we can understand the basic values, the basic principles of akhlaq by aql. And therefore, even a person who is not religious still is expected to observe basic moral values. There are lots of discussions here. And actually, our ulama have said, if you don't believe in the ability of aql to say what is good, what is bad, you cannot even prove religion. Even proving the truth of religion requires accepting that aql has some ability to understand what is right, what is wrong. Because, for example, I have said this in Ayat also. Someone has brought an extraordinary act, has done a mu'jiza. Why we should believe in what he says? Maybe God is giving miraculous power to a liar. He has miraculous power from God, but he's a liar. Why we should listen to him? How can you refute this probability? If you say God in the Bible or in the Quran says that He doesn't support the liars, it's okay, we still have not proved the truth of the scripture. So I need a rational way to disprove this idea that God may support a liar who wants to deceive people. And this is only through aql. Aql says the perfect being would never deceive people. Those who are weak, those who need to gain something, they may deceive other people because mistakenly they think they can get something out of it. But someone who has no need and is absolutely kind and benevolent, why he should deceive us? So you see, it is aql who helps us to believe in God. Aql helps us to verify the claim of people who claim to be sent by God as messengers. So we and Mu'tazilites believe that husn and qubh, goodness and badness, moral goodness and badness, are objective, and therefore aql can understand at least the basic. We don't say aql understand everything, all the details. No, but at least simple ones we can understand, the basic one. You don't need to be a genius person to understand that you should not do zulm, you should keep your promise, you should be kind, you should be honest. You don't need to be, someone like Ibn Sina to understand this. Every person can understand. Another issue that emerged from this discussion, so first was discussion about adl, then led to the discussion about husn khulq, then brought other issues. There was an issue whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's actions serve a purpose or not. Alhamdulillah, in Babul Hadi Ash, we have discussed all these things. This is just introduction, but I hope we can make it understandable. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does things for a purpose or not. Ash'arites had the idea that no. Because if we say, according to Ash'arites, if we say he has a purpose, we are making him needy. I have purpose because I have some needs to meet. Needs to meet. For example, I need a chair to rest, to sit and relax and rest. So why I make the chair or buy the chair? Because I have a need. This is the purpose for me, to meet my need. I make food because I need to eat. Yeah, I travel because I want to do something there, or for holidays or for pilgrimage, whatever. I have some needs. They thought, Ash'arites, that if we say God has purpose, means he wants to achieve something. Then it means that he is not perfect. He is not free from needs. You see, they had very simplistic way of looking things. They had religious kind of orientation, but very superficially. But Mu'tazilah and Shia had another idea. Said no. Certainly God has purpose, because God is wise. What is wisdom? Hikmah means that for everything that you do and say, you have a reason. Hakim never does anything in vain. But the reason for doing something for Hakim can be two things. It can be to benefit himself, or can be to benefit others. Allah has a purpose, but the purpose is not to benefit himself. His purpose is to benefit us. He doesn't need anything from us, but it doesn't mean that he has no purpose. So you see, this was also another mistake. Another problem was, according to the Ash'arites, a mu'min doesn't have power to be kafir, to be a person who doesn't have faith, to be infidel. And kafir doesn't have power for iman. Mu'min is mu'min because this is the way God has created him. Kafir is kafir because this is, again, a big problem, because in this way there is no choice. If I cannot be kafir, then my iman has no value. And if I cannot be mu'min, then my kufr is not a problem. Because if this is the only thing that I can do by creation, yeah? Why, for example, I don't receive credit for being born at a certain time, being born in a certain place? I don't get credit. Why? Because this is not what I had choice. Who is my father? Who is my mother? What is my gender? I don't get any credit for these things. Why? Because this is not my choice. To be mu'min or kafir, according to Ash'arites, is like this. This is the way you are created. But according to the Shiites and Mu'tazilites, no. Mu'min can be also kafir. And this is why actually you have to be careful. You may lose your iman if you are not careful. Kafir also can be a mu'min, therefore there is hope. And there is responsibility. So, these are issues that all came out of the controversy about how to understand divine justice. Therefore, they and us, we both chose divine justice as one of our principles. The third principle. So what was the first principle? Tawhid. The second? Adl. The third principle for the Mu'tazilites is al-wa'du wal-wa'id. The promise and threat. In Arabic, wa'id is used for promising to do something bad, like a threat. Wa'd is general, and in contrast to wa'id means to promise to do something good. Although wa'd can be general, but when they are put together, al-wa'd wal-wa'id, wa'd means to promise to do something good. For example, if I say to my child, if you do your homework, I buy something for you, a chocolate for you. This is wa'd. If I say, if you don't study and don't do your homework, I don't, for example, let you play. This is wa'id. Okay, so wa'id means to threaten that if someone does something bad, either he would lose something good or he would be given something bad. For example, they say, if you don't observe traffic law or regulations, there is a penalty. This is wa'id. If you submit your account, for example, earlier, we may give you some reduction. This is wa'ad. Okay? Certainly, all Muslims believe that whatever Allah promises as good things, as positive things, He would keep His promise. Inna Allah la yukhliful mi'ad. Allah is not going to disappoint us and, change His mind after promising, say, I don't do this for you. If He says, I'm going to reward you for this action, He would keep His promise. He said, I will help you if you trust me. He would keep His promise. Everyone accepts this. But what about wa'id? If He says, if you do this, this is the punishment. Ash'arites had the idea that here is closer to us. That God may not keep His promise of punishing. He certainly keeps His promise if He has promised to do something good. But if He has warned us and said, don't do this, you will be punished, maybe He would not punish. Mu'tazilites say no. In the same way that He must keep His good promise, He must keep His also promise of harming or punishing whatever. He must keep both promises. Unless a person repents. If someone repents and Allah forgives him for his repentance, that's another issue. No one denies that. But we are talking about sins which are not forgiven because someone has not repented. Is it still possible that Allah forgive Without tawbah, we say yes. And Ash'arites also say yes. The only thing which is not forgiven without tawbah is shirk. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَنْ يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. Shirk, of course, with tawbah can be forgiven. Anything with tawbah can be forgiven. But without tawbah, other sins might be forgiven, might not be forgiven. You cannot take risk. You must do tawbah. But according to the Ash'arites, no. Nothing may be forgiven except tawbah. Principle 4. Manzilatun bayn al-manzilatayn. This is manzilah, not manzil. If it was manzil, bayn al-manzilah means a house between two houses. But this is manzilah. Manzilah means a status, position. There was a debate. Already I gave you some brief introduction last session. This debate started mostly from Battle of Siffin, when there was the issue of hakamiyat, arbitration. You know how Muawiyah and Amr As deceived the Ash'ari, Abu al-Hasan Ash'ari and other people, and how unfortunately Khawarij, because of their short-sightedness, then ended up with rejecting both Muawiyah and Imam Ali. Because they said Ali should not have accepted this arbitration. Although Imam Ali was forced to accept. He didn't want it, but he had to accept. They had different ideas. One idea was, we don't need any leader. La hukma illa lillah. The only one who rules is Allah. No, we don't need any person to lead us. We said we don't have any lawmaker other than Allah, but we need leader to implement it. كَلِمَةُ حَقٍّ يُرَادُ بِهَا الْبَاطِلِ إِنِ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ is correct, but the interpretation was wrong. The purpose that they used it was wrong. They wanted to use this true sentence to justify that there must be no leader. If you remember when we had Imama, I said, listen on Imama, I said, Khawarij are the people that deny Imama. Otherwise, Sunni, Shia, 99% of all Muslims, we need Imam who has comprehensive leadership in worldly affairs and religious affairs. Ra'asatun amma fi umur ad-din wa ad-dunya. We need Imam. But Imam has to be ma'soom or not, to be designated or not, these are differences. But Khawarij say, we don't need any Imam, we don't need any leader. It leads to anarchy. Anyway, from the Battle of Siffin, in the year about 37 after Hijrah, so the Prophet passed away after 10 years after Hijrah, 25 years the first three caliphs ruled. Then this is the second year of Imam Ali's Khilafah. So after 2 years, this problem started. So they had this idea that any person who makes a major sin becomes kafir. Muawiyah made a major sin. Ali also made a major sin. Both of them have become kafir. This was the idea of Khawarij. And, okay, they are kafir, that's it? No. Then we have to kill them. We have to kill Muawiyah and we have to kill Ali. They sent some people to kill Muawiyah and Amr. They didn't succeed, but Ibn Muljam succeeded in killing Imam Ali alayhi salam. So, this wrong understanding led to disasters. From that time, this was a big, very hot topic. Murtakibul kaba'ir, those who commit major sins, are they kafir or mu'min? Means, are they still believers or not believers? Khawarij had the idea that they are kafir. Some people had the idea that they are not kafir. And actually, you shouldn't bother that much about committing major sin. These were called murji'ah. Murji'ah with hamza, not with ayn. Murji'ah with hamza. From irja. We have raja, which means hope. But irja means to delay, to postpone. Some people have thought it comes from hope, it means to give hope. No. The correct interpretation, it comes from delay. What does it mean? It means that they put the position of amal, action, afterwards. They say, or according to some people, they make judgment postponed. They say, if someone is mu'min and commits major sins, it's not anything that we judge about it. Iman can compensate that, can cover that. So they went to the other extreme. Khawarij on one side, Murtakibul Kabira becomes kafir. Murji'ah, don't worry about it. Therefore, they used to say, even if Khalifa, governors, they drink alcohol or wine, they do haram, still they can be Khalifatul Muslimin, no problem. Allah knows how to do His own judgment with them, and you don't have any way to condemn that. And they were very much promoted by those who were in power, because this was giving them justification. So, this became a big issue. As you remember, I said there was a historical moment when someone went to the masjid and there was a circle around Hassan al-Basri. He was teaching them. He asked this question from Hassan al-Basri. Wasil ibn Ata, who was a student of Hassan al-Basri, before the teacher gave the answer, he gave the answer. Because he was not happy with the answer that his teacher is going to give, perhaps. So he said, manzilatun bayn al-manzilatayn. So he brought a new idea. He said something in between. Neither he is mu'min, nor he is kafir. And he left and sat in another side of masjid. Or Hassan al-Basri told him to go and be away from us. So, i'tazala anna means he left us. Hassan al-Basri said, i'tazala anna, he left us. Or he said, i'tazil anna, leave us. And then after Wasil, his brother-in-law, Amr ibn Ubayd, who was his student, also joined him. So they started Mu'tazilite group. So, Mu'tazilites have this idea of manzilatun bayn al-manzilatayn. And finally, the fifth principle, al-amr bil-ma'ruf wal-nahy al-munkar. Of course, This doesn't seem to be something like a principle of faith because it's more practical. But again, this was something that they wanted to highlight because of its importance in the debate at that time. There are some conditions for necessity of amr al-ma'ruf and nahy al-munkar. Some Muslims believe in these conditions, some Muslims don't believe in these conditions. In Risala also you see. For example, one condition is that there must be a likelihood of success, of being effective, of having positive influence. If someone does something wrong, and I know 100% that it has no benefit, then many say it's not wajib to do amr ma'ruf. Of course, if it is a very major issue, then that's another issue. But something that is wajib, but not social, political, big things that no matter whether they listen or not, you have to do amr ma'ruf. So this is one condition. Another condition is amr al-ma'ruf wal-nahy al-munkar, to enjoin the good and prohibit the evil, should not lead to a greater harm. Sometimes someone is not doing something wajib or is doing something haram, and if I do amr ma'ruf, I lose my life, or they put me in prison, they torture me, or anyway some greater harm can happen, or this person may totally go away from faith. We have to be careful. So these are two conditions that many Muslims, Sunni, Shia, they put. But some people didn't believe in these conditions. In the book, Ayatollah Mutahhari mentions Ahl Hadith, that they believed in these conditions, but Khawarij didn't believe in conditions. Khawarij said there is no condition. Ahlul Hadith like Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they said there are conditions. But then they themselves differed. Khawarij said there is no condition and there is no limit. Amr ma'ruf can lead to fighting and taking sword. Ahlul Hadith said not taking sword and fighting. There is a limit. Mu'tazilites in this between, they come up with this idea that conditions are necessary to observe, but there is a limit. So they took the middle side, middle position. Neither like Ahl Hadith nor like Khawarij. They believed in the conditions, but they put a limit. So these are 5 principles of the Mu'tazilites. And inshallah, in the next session, which is lesson 5 of the book, and it will be lesson 4 of us, we will give a review of all their positions in metaphysics, in physics, in theology, all different ideas, so that you understand that from early centuries of Islam, there was a dynamic discussion going on in different schools, and you better understand then how the Shia put forward their ideas. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.